that means we're recording now.
Yeah. So I'm just really excited because we've never done a countdown before. I've just looked at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wayne's World-esque countdown. Here we are.
Should I go?
So today, let's keep it professional, Dan. For fuck's sake. I'm swearing in the first bit. We have Adam Hinton, brilliant photographer. Our second photographer. He actually was meant to be our first. And then through some unfortunate diary thing, ranking got in and he was our first photographer. But hey-ho, there's no worries in that, is there?
No, I'm looking forward to it. And I've not met him before, so we're in lockdown, so we're virtually looking at each other.
Oh God, I've not told the listeners that. I'm in the top of the house with some lot of cushions and pillows around me. Don't read into that. It's just soundproofing. Yeah.
And I'm in the spare room because I get banished. I'm banished from our downstairs office by the wife who works from home. So,
can I say, looking fairly dapper, handsome, and with a lovely voice.
Oh, I've had a trim as well.
No, mate. No wonder Matt Lever talks about it in such revered tones.
Yeah, lucky man.
So we're going to talk about. Adam's done a huge body of work, not just on billboards, but he's like consummate. He's done everything. But we're going to focus on a bit of Nike and Adidas, and then This Girl Can, which is a real high point, and then obviously slightly more humbling topics.
One of yours, right?
Yeah, one of mine. A little NHS number and the cancer is happening stuff. So it's a big mixed bag. I'm really looking forward to it. He's a really great, very chatty, very down to earth. I hesitate to say whether he's an Arsenal or a Chelsea fan. He's definitely not a Spurs man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh well.
Can't win against him. Yeah. So no, I'm looking forward to it, and I suppose we'll try not to interrupt each other because we're normally next to each other, which is lovely, isn't it? But,
well, I can normally hold my hand out and say, "Well, just stop a minute," and you won't be able to see that because we're
Or you could just talk over me, like.
I might just put my finger over my mouth and say, "Shh."
Okay.
Right.
Well, do you want to go?
Let's dial him in. Let's dial him in.
Dial him in. We've never had a countdown before. That's made me really excited. Okay. Adam Hinton.
Hello,
mate. So multi-award-winning photographer, a man not afraid to go to challenging places to tell a story, be that a war zone, an NHS hospital, or a cancer ward. Welcome to Behind the Billboard, mate.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I have to warn, obviously, us and all the listeners that it is our first time properly remote. But fear not, my tech capabilities are off the scale.
Which end?
So I think anyone who's listened to any of our episodes before will know about Hugh's technical capabilities and how reliant we are on Silent John.
I mean, God, where would we be without Silent John? So on a level of keeping it nice and shallow for a minute, Adam, I've got to ask you one really pathetic question. Are you wearing shorts?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't see too sneaky up there. Of course I'm wearing I have to wear shorts. It's
just a tiny
day, isn't it?
A tiny bit of background. When I worked with Adam for seemed like a very long time, but a very nice time on NHS, he'd always turn up to every meeting in a pair of shorts, which initially I thought was the right thing to do because it's a very hot summer. And it just went on and on. And in the reception, they'd ring up and go, someone in reception for you with shorts on. Is that okay? I'd be like, yeah. But no, it's lovely to see. So you didn't go for full trouser. Are you going to wear shorts the whole winter?
No. I had trousers on last night because it was raining and it was chilly. Right. It's just nice to be out and exposed. Ooh, yeah.
It's not going well, is it? I tell you,
if I go to a nudist colony, I'm just straight in there. Things like that. It's great, and no one bats an eyelid in places like that. So it's like, no one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my one sort of slightly serious question was, does it make your subject feel more? The way you dress, the way you carry yourself, in a way, does it make people more relaxed, thinking, oh, it's not some sort of poncy photographer, he's just like one of us, turned up in his sort of shorts and his trainers. It help you?
I suppose genuinely, I think it does because I suppose also, like when you're working in some places that I kind of work or visit, turning up because I work independently, it's turning up like, say, you're a standard journalist, it has to have a stab vest on or some heavy gear or big pair of boots, it's not very relaxing. Yeah. And I suppose if you're someone who, if you turn up and you're wearing fairly simple clothing, a pair of sandals in a favela or somewhere like that, where there is quite a lot of broken glass and dog poo everywhere. Because it's a leveler. Yeah, I think it does.
No, it's good. Where do we find you today, Adam? Where are you
today? I'm down on the south coast, in a little place we've got in St Leonard's, which is quite a recent purchase. As you can see, I'm in the room, and there is nothing in it. A bit like the rest of the place. So
I can see a room full of shorts, Adam. There's 5,000 pairs of shorts behind you. Today, Adam, we're going to talk about some of the work that you've done with clients for Nike, Adidas, This Girl Can, Cancer Research, NHS, and all the stuff around that. But we kind of touched on it very briefly there. But I mean, how has life been over the last 9 months? Obviously, it's been, as you said, it's been difficult for a lot of people around the country, and in our industry. The advertising industry has been hit pretty hard as people have been stuck indoors. But in general, how is life this year, and what kind of work you've been doing to keep yourself busy?
I mean, it's funny because when the lockdown started, my son was about to go travelling in Asia for 6 months with his girlfriend, literally leaving on the 24th, I think the day after the lockdown. Oh, wow. So that all got cancelled. My daughter, she was overjoyed because her A-levels were cancelled, which is like, wow. Done and dusted, it's sorted. But she was going to have a year off, and it's been good for my son because he's decided to go to university, which I think was a good thing. For my daughter, she didn't have a year off and has gone to university. For us, it's been quite relaxed. I mean, I suppose during the first lockdown, I decided to take it easy. I know a lot of photographers, because I come from a journalistic kind of background, were going out, empty streets, people through windows, and I decided, and there wasn't much work going on. I just thought, well, I'm just going to actually take this opportunity to relax. I just took 3 months off, basically. But the weird thing is, I ended up doing a mini campaign for NatWest, which was on Zoom, which seems quite strange. It was a really straightforward campaign of people just holding up blank placards, which they filled in, I suppose, we're here for you in COVID, that kind of stuff. And I then directed one of their colleagues to walk around with an iPhone or something similar, and line it up and take their photograph. I mean, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because you're being commissioned, and you'll get the kind of, you've got a whole new set of tools and crew, and you can only direct them because you're away from them on a Zoom call. It's quite an interesting thing for you to have to do as a DOP, to say, I want this shot. This is how you're going to do it on your iPhone, so that you can get it for the production. Yeah. I mean, it was mainly me getting. I mean, it's surprising, a simple shot like that and a little bit of video. I mean, it took us a good 2 hours, each time. So, and there was the crew, the art director, and everyone was there, and the art buyer. So there was about 4 or 5 of us on the call, and I was just basically looking for decent lighting in someone's house or in an office somewhere, not with a great big streak of light going halfway through their face or something like that, just to make sure it was fairly even. I mean, it is the quality of those cameras is quite good, even, what you can do with it. Yeah. So, and it was nice to have it. I mean, I must, doing a 2 hour Zoom shoot was like, really quite like, at the end of it, you're just like cross-eyed. And sometimes we'd be doing two in a day. It was the most we could do. Yeah, because I suppose because I know with a lot of creatives, they were people who were working still working in the ad agencies were working pretty hard. I mean, a lot of people have been working really long hours on Zoom all the time. And
everything takes 3 times as long. So you're much less effective as well.
Well, I mean, like you have a meeting, it's really quite strange. The way you have to read it, and there's not much interjection, is there? You have to just wait for someone to stop talking and then start talking.
Yeah.
Or do what I do and just keep talking until someone shuts up and listens. It's sort of what happens with my wife. Sorry, but actually, on that.
I was asked to be on. I had to do. This sounds really wanky, but I was interviewed for a TV show over the summer, over lockdown, and yes, I can see Hugh's really impressed. I'm
not going to ask what the show was.
It was one of these kind of
Spurs in-house TV.
No, it was about pranking people and in the public, and some of our stunts out of home have been kind of pranks on the public, either augmented reality or anything like that. And anyway, so they were doing a kind of a talking heads piece, and then they were showing clips of all the best pranks around the world. Instead of having what they would normally do in that situation is they'd book out a studio space and they'd stick you in front of a camera, they'd ask you a load of questions, and then you'd go. They sent a runner out with a pop-up green screen, and I had set it up myself with some lighting and a camera. And then on Zoom, they did the kind of setup with me. He asked the executive producer asked me some questions over the Zoom call, and they had to make sure the camera was on and everything was capturing. And then he muted himself, and I would talk into the camera, and then we'd go again. So it's kind of the studio at home.
And, I mean, it is. I think you can see the difference. No disrespect, and I'm obviously for myself as well. You can see there's a difference in quality in some of the work. You know what I mean? I've seen some of the ads recently, and I used to look like, that's
been shot at home. Yeah,
it's been shot with someone. I know, but you could tell, they really have gone to town on the COVID restrictions. They've made the photographer stand further away than they need to. The models aren't interacting enough. It's.
Have you seen anything during this lockdown or the one before or just this year? Any work that you did actually like? Because it's kind of like, I think you're right. There's so much stuff out there. It looks like it's come from a slightly random place. It's like someone speaking pidgin English in a visual format. But is there any work that you've seen on billboards this year that you thought, that was half decent?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I haven't seen an awful lot. I suppose I've not been. I've been keeping myself more local. I'm trying to think the stuff that I like. I mean, I like stuff that's quite big picture, straightforward message, gets it across nice and easy. That's
what we like.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we like. I think they work. You know what I mean? Not.
Yeah.
I mean, there's like KFC's finger licking good.
Lovely.
That was like. I mean, like personally, because from my approach to photography, a little bit too glossy and overlit, but in the big picture, simple message, done. You know what I mean? I mean, I loved it. That other KFC campaign actually was the flattery one. I thought that was great. that was. That was fun.
The PFC and the UFC.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Intelligent approach from Mother, isn't it? The way they did it.
They did one over lockdown as well, where they blurred out the finger licking line as well, didn't they? Kind of when they were back open. It was quite nice. It just said we're back.
Yeah,
nice stuff.
No finger licking.
Yeah,
very good.
Ads, we got to so the first sort of we want to talk to you, get more and more into billboards, obviously, and your work in a bit. But can you remember the first billboard that featured your work? Because I was sort of thinking about it yesterday. You you probably had your first work published in a print medium, right? Because you're more like a reportage photographer. But can you remember when you first had a billboard with your work on?
Yeah. No. I mean, I can. It was. It was my first campaign, which I did for the government, which was an employment one, through DMB. No, was it DDMB or something?
DMBMB.
It was DMB&B. It was DMB&B. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, down in Mayfair, down near Piccadilly. Yeah, down there.
Yeah.
And that was. Yeah, I can remember. Well, just seeing that, I can, the shots we did. That was my first experience of doing an advertising campaign.
What was it for?
It was for the government. It was for just about employment and training. It's for training.
Okay.
It was a long time. It was a long time ago. God, yeah, it must have been.
90. They don't exist anymore, do they?
And how did you make that jump from? How did you make that jump from kind of reportage photography into the advertising world? You just saw, did a creative director just go, "This is the guy I want, and this is the style we want"?
No, I came out of college and I kind of went, got into working for newspapers quite quickly. Yeah, there was a certain little way, you got your folio from college, went out, saw the newspapers, and some of the smaller magazines, the other magazines, Times Educational Supplements and things like that, who were a lot of bread and butter. I think magazine that used to be called Nursing Times. I don't even know if it's still around. Loads of us worked for it. When I say loads of us, like people coming out of college. And then there was the independent magazine. But I kind of, because I was documentary, I didn't do news. I didn't want to do news. So I worked on the features side, which was good. I was working with the Telegraph, which happened to be probably the nicest people to work for in a way, which seems a bit ironic, but they were the nicest ones to work for. You think really conservative. They're going to treat you, hammer you for everything. You know what I mean? But no, they didn't. It was the Independent and the Guardian that were really ended up paying the worst rates. Which is odd.
Adam, was there one shot? Was there one shot that you took in this period which became got you your break? Was there one image that you thought, that's what's got me in the door? What was that?
Not in the door. I mean, because I did projects. So I suppose the work I did on Steelworks was the thing I think really helped me. So I was it was quite tactical when I was at college, because I spent quite a long time at college, because I came out of school and I failed everything, but managed to get myself back in. Yeah, after realising that's actually the best thing to do. So almost my 3 years as a degree was like, do I get a job or do I do a degree? And it was all free then. So it's like, I think I'll have 3 years of state-sponsored working on my portfolio, and just enjoying having a nice time. So I came out with a decent book. But it got me into the idea of doing projects, which I carried on doing. I mean, I think the picture that really got me going, certainly in advertising, I did was for my Ukrainian project. It's a shot of 3 miners sat down after a shift having a fag on the edge of a bathtub. It's a portrait, but it was used as a poster for an exhibition at the Photographers Gallery, which obviously, back then in 94, I think 93, 94 was like, holy shit. I mean, that's the place, and it was like, to get a show there was, and I was young. I was like, that's like amazing. So
that's the I made it moment. That was the.
It was because I took that. What was funny, because I went out because I had friends who worked in advertising. A lot of my colleagues, we liked the papers, but it was a bit boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could get quite dull. And I worked on features and it got really dull. Garden of the week, car of the week, property of the week, fair enough. I've always been key. I've needed to earn a living. That's one of my driving forces. I don't want to be brassic, you know what I mean? Had that as a kid with bailiffs and shit like that and social workers at the door. I don't want that, so I wasn't going to have that. So made sure. So that was fine for working, but it got boring. And then so I had some of our friends worked in advertising. My wife at the time, I met, she worked in advertising, and they said, "You've got to get your book in there. They're screaming for it." And a lot of my colleagues were working in design agencies or for design houses doing annual reports, because there was Network was a really important agency, independent photography agent, like the UK's version of Magnum. And I think design houses liked working with them.
Yeah,
so because they kind of talk the same language. And then I thought, and then someone said, "Here's a list of people to go and see at Y&R," because she worked there. Go and see them. So I did. And then my wife put me in contact with Katie Grogan at BMP, where she worked, because she was working at BMP at the time. She wasn't my wife then, when we were sort of courting, so to speak. And Katie was like wonderful, took me under her wing, gave me a list of people to see, arranged some appointments for me. And that picture, I got this poster for the exhibition. It's a big poster, proper what would it be? 1, 2, 3, A2. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like that poster I would give out to everyone I saw. Yeah. And I'm not joking you. And I was doing it all myself. I was actually, I was working and making appointments in the meantime and seeing people. And I would go back to agents, and loads of people had it on their wall. So it was like, and when I saw John, my agent, who I wasn't at the time, and I was really, I'd basically got an agent that wasn't working out, and "Oh yeah, you're the Free Miners, aren't you? That's you."
Yeah.
So everywhere, and he had seen it everywhere. So that really, that was good, and it was great seeing.
You basically just explained your first poster to us, and it actually worked. That was your calling card. You basically turned yourself into a brand. You turned it into a poster, and that's what got you you the work.
Yeah.
I mean, the other key part of this story is creative people are simple folk, and they love a freebie. And creative people also love something that's looking like fucking cool. So you rock up. I mean, I didn't get the call, Adam, so you must have missed me off that list. But
just staying back in the old days, Adam, I think I read somewhere that you were stabbed as a youngster when out with your camera. Is that right?
No, it wasn't out with my camera. My mum's a paranoid schizophrenic, so that was quite short. That was difficult, yeah. And she had a thing. Anyway, so eventually she went to prison, which actually I was quite relieved about, and then ended up going to Broadmoor. So she was quite ill. When all that happened, I mean, she stabbed a woman in the neck, basically. She stabbed my dad when I was 3. I mean, it was like, it was quite quite an interesting, it's quite a fruity upbringing at times. Hence the social workers and the police. But then, basically, as soon as my mum went into prison, and I call myself a part-time punk because I was living with my dad, so I had to see her at the weekend, and I had to flatten my hair, couldn't dye it, you know what I mean, and had to actually wear proper clothing. And as soon as she went into prison, I remember the first time I went to Holloway, so I jet black hair, dyed it permanently jet black, spiked it up, put my leathers on, my bondage trousers, T-shirt. I walked into the visiting room at Holloway. She looked at me, picked up the tray with the tea and cake on, and just walked straight out the door. So it was like,
oh my God.
I was being quite symbolic. It was like, you've got to accept this is
me, You can't do anything about it now.
Fed up with it, I'm not doing this anymore.
Wow.
And my dad was quite laid back. He wasn't into education. He failed his 11 plus. He didn't even go to secondary school. So I kind of just went off the rails. You know what I mean? And I went lots of booze, lots of weed, got loads of gigs. From doing 10 O levels to just failing all of them, basically. And then one night we were out, and this guy came up to us, stabbed my mate. And then after that, stabbed me and stabbed a girl, while we were all running away. But luckily, it was. I mean, it was a bit scary. My mate nearly died, so it was going to be attempted murder. But good thing was I got $2,000 in compensation from the government. So I got myself, after having a so-so really basic, silly little camera, I got myself some decent camera. And luckily, they gave me the money. They gave me 2,160 quid. And when I was 16, I got 160 quid, which lasted about a month. Yeah, because it just went straight on weed and booze and everything.
Right.
They gave me the rest when I was 18, and I was so much more together then. And I literally had a shopping list, found out where the cheapest cameras were, and off I went. I went straight from the bank to the camera shop.
So do you think that without that episode, which was obviously quite harrowing as a youngster, but without that episode, do you think would you have been able to afford those cameras and be where you are now? Do you think that was a seminal moment in? I had basic camera gear, but it was so basic. It was like a camera with a 50mm lens. Which my dad had bought me. So he didn't have much money, so I must have I wanted it. And then, but yeah, I think without that equipment really was a big boost.
Did you know? So, mate, sorry, just really humbling you telling us that story. Thank you so much. I didn't actually know all of that. So, thank you, mate.
It's
amazing story.
Honestly, hasn't done me any fucking harm at all. Yeah. I know where you live, both.
Good, good. You see. Exactly. I can just see you as a punk, but the shorts and the punk thing kind of throw me. So I'm just trying to put those together.
Yeah. No,
but I think we're gonna need some photos for the feed of that stage of your life. If you can dig out some of your punk photos,
I've got some left. Yeah,
great.
But so at that stage, you already knew you're 14 or 15, but you knew you wanted to be a photographer.
Yes. It sounds strange. Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. I love people who know. It took me about 20 years to figure out what I wanted to do, but and I'm still sort of trying to work it out. But I love that, that clarity. At that age, and like Dan's saying, then this awful episode happens to you, but then it's kind of like, right, well, it sort of felt like fate, I suppose. And you go, right, I really can start to motor now and pursue this dream of being a photographer.
I mean, it was there. Because I can still remember the careers talking at school, and it's like I'm going to do two A levels, 3 A levels, so what I was meant to, and one of them would be photography. When I did my 5 retakes for my O levels, one of them was photography. So then I did a 1-day diploma in photography initially, before going back to do the A levels. Yeah.
So you were there.
So it was always there. Yeah, and it's a good way of looking at the world. It helps. I think it helps you.
Mate. Well, you could have gone one of two ways, I suppose. And thank God you've ended up here on our lovely podcast. Did you prefer? This is something I'm really interested in. Dan and I have talked a lot on the podcast about oxygen, about jobs which give you total fulfillment, but might not be brilliantly paid, and the other way around, you get pretty well paid for a gig, but it might not be as good. Did you start leaning more into one or the other? Did you start thinking, the ad game is, I really want to get into it, or did you still kind of temper it with go, right, I'm off to some sort of war zone now to get a bit
I don't do lots of war zone. I'm quite careful about where I go. I go to places that I feel comfortable in and that I can predict. So, the only war zone, I went to Yugoslavia at the beginning, and nearly shat myself there. Bullets were quite close, and there was a couple of shells, and I was like, really? Fuck, Right. And then about 2 weeks later, I went off to Iran just after the end of the Gulf War with a colleague who was very experienced. And it was during a refugee crisis that there was a lot of just after the war, the Kurds had been kind of led to believe they should rise up against the regime, the Saddam regime, and they did, and then they were left to sort of left hanging. And they just sent the Revolutionary Guards in there, and there was lots of Kurdish refugees going into Turkey and then going into Iran. And that experience quite shocked me, because I was with some experienced journalists who were so freaked out at times they were throwing up, thinking we were all going to be shot and things like that. And I'm standing there, if they're fucking freaking out, then this is got to be really bad, And then when I got home, I'm like, okay, they're very brave, these people. I haven't got I haven't got those kind of guts, but I can walk into places that other people think are ridiculously dangerous. I just think ultimately they're not. Yeah, they're not.
Yeah. I mean, it's really interesting you said that. And, once you've done that, as in your job, so this is not the same, but when I was at JWT, I worked on a campaign with some brilliant people, and it was doing ads live from a war zone from Afghanistan. Yeah. And it was really, really scary and hairy. And we used to have meetings going, how can you guarantee we're not going to have someone dying live on air? And you go, that's a pretty serious question. And we always came over it. It was fine. So ever since then, whenever I get on a gig and some people start going, I'm getting a bit nervous about this and that, I kind of always sit there thinking, wow, I've done stuff where people could have died. So it never worries me, someone going, well, the light's a bit weird there, or that logo's a bit strange, or the red on the coat, you're going, oh my goodness, we've been, and I imagine you must sit there sometimes, having been in these areas of conflict or some pretty tough stuff, and gone, this doesn't worry me, and that must be a very good learning to take. I always find that a good reassuring thing, to have.
Yeah, but I'm also been lucky in the work that I get as well. That I just seem to get what I think is really good, interesting work. Yeah, I really loved pretty much everything I've done in advertising.
Do you think that's because you're a certain type of? Well, it's your choices as well, isn't it? You can turn down. Well, you turn down stuff that's just not your bag. But then also you from my point of view, without blowing too much smoke up your wazoo, I always wanted to work with you because I always loved your work. And then even if we're at the Taylor Wessing show, me and the missus or something, I go, oh, that's that Adam Hinton. I know him. And I sort of didn't really, but I sort of hoped to. So, but I like that slightly uncompromising approach to work, which is, when you get a brilliant idea from an anomaly like, cancer is happening right now, or, some of the Nike stuff we can talk about, you go, it's going to be quite a short list in our book of who we're going to go to. This is your chance to go and work with one of those people, because that's what they do.
Right. Okay.
So in a way, that's absolutely your strength, isn't it? But it's also, I suppose, where you would turn quite a few jobs down just because you go, that's just not me. It's not my bag.
It's funny. I rarely get offered jobs that don't fit. Yeah.
Right. So you become so well. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny. What I've noticed, I have to explain this to people, because like a lot of people in my industry, they're like, when everyone was going for design, I went into advertising. Yeah. And now, advertising is one of the few areas left where you can actually have decent budgets and get quite a lot of creative freedom. Yeah, it's not constrained. It's not got a fixed sort of ideology of how it should look. Yeah, people are still quite open. And it's funny. I showed my book because I got this fat, really like John and now James and the rest of the Rose and everyone, a massive book about that thick. It's got a metal cover. I've had it for 20 years, I think, since I joined John, which is coming up for our 20th anniversary, me and John.
Right. Hello, so
John. A little love fest soon. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's, and that it is actually, it's going to be our 20 years I've been with John, I think, in about 2 or 3 weeks' time.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, but, you know, I then showed other photographers that, like reportage photographers, saying, we'd like to get into advertising. Yeah. Everywhere's screwed. You know what I mean? You're getting these great jobs. I said, yeah, well, okay, I'll show you my book. Then I showed them a book that I've always had, and they look at it and they're like, you get work with this book? Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean? Do you think it's a pile of shit or something? No.
Did you punch him in the face? Yeah. Of course I did, you twat.
Whack him across the head, stop the head with it. Get out of it.
What are you talking to?
No, what they mean is actually they're looking at it going, but you're just showing, like I used to open up with stuff that I'd shot in Gaza and the West Bank in Palestine and Israel, yeah? And they're like, you get work with this kind of material. You know, this is just reportage. This is the stuff that I do, you know?
Yeah.
These are not. Where's the advertising work? And I say, well, I put tear sheets in the back, you know. So I'll basically, and what I discovered was also, you know, so I show creatives this kind of work, and they go, we've got some campaigns that we can make this work for. You know, when I've had sort of like, because I've got this thing about my insecurities, like running, just being like brassic, yeah. I don't want to end up in the gutter.
Yeah.
So when I've been quiet, and I went round some smaller agencies, and what I've discovered is that smaller agencies, they like the work, but they can't use it because they've got narrower bounds. So I basically, people say, like, who do you work for? I say, well, I basically work for like the big agencies in London. That's it.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And because I show them this book, and they get it, and they go, they're not interested in like, oh, you know, can you do a nice portrait, or can you do this? Like, I like the way you look at things. Here's a job, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why it's a really lucky, it's an incredibly privileged place to work, because they literally take you. They want to see what you do. They don't want to see some. Yeah. Oh, here's my landscapes. Here's some portraits. Here's a bit of still life.
Yeah. That's
just. I think that probably segues us quite nicely to Nike, actually, because you know, it'd be good to get into the projects that we're going to talk about. And I think Hugh's. Everyone knows that Hugh loves a timeline, so we've tried to do these in a bit of a chronological order.
Okay.
So you can tell us if we're wrong or if Hugh's research is up the Swanee. But
couldn't be wrong.
We're going to start with Nike, which is a phenomenally shot campaign, all talent-led as well. So all Nike talent-led, which we believe to be around 2011. It was for the 2012 Olympics, Olympics and football and all sorts of stuff was going on in 2012, wasn't there? There was kind of there were tournaments and lots of things for people to strive to, including marathons and all sorts. But yeah, let's start with that Nike stuff. You were it sounds like a very well established photographer by this point, and they'd come to you because they saw some of your portraiture work.
Yeah, I think. I mean, this was an odd one because it's actually they had different creative directions, and then I think a colleague of mine who I know who was going to work on the campaign 2 weeks beforehand. I got the call from John James and saying they'd like to do work on this Nike campaign. I think they'd literally had a sort of a change of direction at the end. So I joined where most of the work had been done. I was working with Wyden and Kennedy with Guy Featherstone, who's a lovely guy, really, really lovely guy. And basically got us on board. I think I was probably about a week after our first meeting, I'm off shooting some of these elite athletes. And it's basically, it's one of those jobs where they're sort of like, how this is what we want. We want to see them in portraiture. We want to see them in action. So it was kind of getting a lot of advice, which is always the nicest way. Is like I'm being told one thing and then being asked to what's the best way to do this photographically, So we set these things up, like working with Mo, that was over in Portland, getting him to do. He gave us a poultry 1,600 meters because he just done he's in the middle of training, you know what I mean? So 4 laps, and this shot, the action shot. Because you want him grimacing. I mean, it was. I was on the long lens. So one of the things that I'm asked to do some of the sports jobs as well is because I know how to do sports photography.
Yeah.
So I know that a lot of it's done on a long lens. It's got the foreshortening. I get some jobs where they wanted to do a complete rip that up and do it another way. But if you want to capture some of these athletes, and they literally, some of them give you such small windows. Yeah, you've got like 3 or 4 opportunities to do it, and then they're gone. You know what I mean? It's, hold on, I haven't got it. It wasn't sharp or anything like that. I mean, thank heaven for bloody autofocus. Anyway, that stuff's amazing. You know what I mean? It's absolutely incredible. I mean, the cameras are great these days. But yes, like with Mo, that was right at the end because it was like, he was not pushing himself because he had to pretend to be pushing himself because he wasn't allowed to. And I was just going, Mo, it's just not working. It's not working. And literally 200 meters left. I said, Mo, just hammer it for 200, please. Yeah. You know what I mean? And he did. And that's one of my last shots, 4 laps. And that's in the last 100 meters. And
so you're literally you're the bloke who said to Mo Farah, mate, you're not faster. Yeah. Come on, yeah. What do you call that? Yeah. I just got out. I got out the golf van and ran round him. Yeah, exactly. This is how you do it. No, the thing is, like, it's a way of approach as well. You've got to be you've got to make people relaxed, haven't you? And I've met some pretty sticky characters in sports. Yeah, who everyone says they'll fucking eat you alive, and they've been absolutely cool. Brilliant. So I guess there's you have to take a certain approach to get things out of people. Yeah,
put a pair of shorts on and you're fine, right?
Yeah, there you go, pair of shorts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was cold in Portland.
Do you? I mean, joking aside, I particularly love the Paula Radcliffe shot. I think it's absolutely amazing. Yeah. It's quite scary. Of her face. How do you? Sorry, without being thick, but I know you've got a camera and you're telling him to run fast. But what do you do to make people feel relaxed or to get it out of them? Because you must have some sort of skill or technique or approach. Do you?
I suppose, I don't know. It's, you kind of explain what we need, and they know what they're there for. Yeah. And you almost say it, look, we know what we're here for and we want to get this done as best as we can, and taking up as little time of your time as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And
they just go, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And that's kind of what happens. I mean, with all these athletes, like with Paula, she'd just been doing some intense training. She's running like a marathon a day. I don't know how you run a marathon a day, especially when you've got 2 young kids. She had 2 young kids as well, and Rio as well. Wow. Rio was a little bit hesitant, but I'm kind of saying to him, look, I just need you to look exhausted, and the only way you're going to look exhausted is if you do 50 push-ups here and stand up, and you'll look good for about 30 seconds because you recover so quick.
I hear there's a nice story about the Mark Cavendish shoot. Can you tell us a bit more about that photo?
I can remember Mark. because everyone was saying, like, Mark's the sort of person that he's the northerner who just likes to just get on with it and doesn't want any fuss, or won't do stuff that he's not into or anything too fancy. So we set up. I mean, on all these shoots, you kind of set up, and you have a sports person there to sort of manage them, and talk with them. So we had a couple of great guys doing that. Ran through some practices, and then Mark came up, and I suggested, actually, does he want to? Would he mind doing the portrait first? Because that's what I was kind of being pushed towards. And I said, can you just go for a run or do some push-ups or something like that? And he kind of went like, no, I don't want to look like that. No, I'm not doing that. So he was like, okay. Well, let's do the cycling. Yeah. Well, obviously, let's go down and do the cycling. So I jumped on the back of the. Yeah.
Did you say to him, do you know who I am? I'm the guy who told Mo Farah to go faster.
Yeah, I could have said that. Yeah, I said, I want some respect here. You know what I mean? Yeah. Luckily, my assistant was there to hold me back. But anyway, so we went down to the cycling, and we wanted the shot coming towards us. And I said, like, again, long lens, that's the shot that we're used to, cycling towards us. So I'm on literally it's fixed there, cameras there. I'm going to say amazing cameras. I think they were doing about 12 frames a second, and just tracking him coming towards me. So when he comes goes off round the track, and I said, "Yeah, you're going to come, okay?" And then he's coming towards me, and he comes, and we said we wanted the famous swinging around, mouth open. He comes out, and I'm not. He came at me, and I'm like, as he's getting closer and closer, I'm personally getting like, when's he going to fucking turn? You know what I mean? It's like this, and it's so fast. I'm not joking. He literally goes. You can feel it. You physically feel him just rub by the side of you. And he literally right into the lens like that, and it was like, I was a bit like, whoa, you know what I mean? So he then did that, and again we looked in the camera, and it's like me and Guy looked at it and we went, brilliant, yeah. Well, let's just get some more. So he did it a few more times, and then I said, and then the last time I said, look, we do need this shot of you being really knackered. And he was like, well, I don't know if I want to look like that. I said, oh, come on, look, here's some shots I've done of some of the other athletes, and you like them. And it's like, look, when we finish, can you cycle up that hill, back down there, and meet me at the point that we set up the portraits? And he was like, but I mean, that's the way to manage people, because eventually he was like, yeah, you know what, that's fine, that'll look great. And so we literally pegged it up there as he went off up the hill, came back down, and again, literally he just jumped off his bike straight into it and just did the shot like that.
But like you said, they recover so quickly that within a few minutes you've got
a few minutes. No, you're talking about 20 or 30 seconds. They are wow. They are all of these athletes. I mean, the thing is, you've got to, when you're dealing with that, you do need to get them to properly do it, because if you get all the neck and all the tension, Yeah. I mean, actually, you look at him; he looks quite calm anyway. I mean, I don't know if he gets as breathless. Because because he's famous for his sprint finishing. Yeah, but he was.
It's such a fantastic series of photos, but as a campaign, Wyden and Kennedy's that you were working with, it's just they've done such a great job of the story and that campaign. I can remember working with them on the digital out home activations. And the way that this campaign has been created is kind of everyone making their pledge for 2012 that they were going to run faster. And I can remember the stuff that we did from the everyday people side of the campaign, where they were mimicking your shots in store when people were buying their trainers, and they had a tablet for consumers to write on to say what they were pledging to do to get fitter for in 2012. So it was a great campaign, and I think that seeing some of those extensions all referencing this above the line photography, it was just it's great to see it all come together, and it is fantastic work.
I mean, it was nice for me as well, because I remember seeing the the big cinema, the
IMAX,
the IMAX. Yeah. I mean, it was on there, and literally that was incredible. Walking over Waterloo Bridge, and I was like, wow, and then they did these. I mean, it was pretty good. They almost did like an exhibition in the Oxford Street branch, where they had the portraits up, with their shoes, and as you said, they had people there running and having their picture taken in a similar way. So and then they did a separate exhibition in Shoreditch and produced a little booklet for it as well. So they really treated it. I mean, it was like amazing. I mean,
it's also one of the first campaigns I remember where they'd taken over. I'm pretty sure it was Oxford Circus Tube Station, which there's a famous kind of crossway where kind of some of the tunnels come together called Five Ways, right? And they'd taken over those tunnels and they paper posted all of these shots across the tunnels. It was just a stunning.
Yeah, I mean, it was lovely, really lovely the way they did it. Yeah, and the way they used it.
When you said, when you came across the bridge and you saw it, do you as a photographer get the same sort of buzz out of, seeing your work? I know creative people do when they get their great ad through. I certainly love going and see it and sort of half wanting to nudge a bloke who's completely ignoring it, going, I did that, mate. Is there a different feeling between that, say, and seeing a piece of editorial for you? Do you get the same buzz, or is it a different feeling? Is there a sort of feeling you have?
Yeah, I mean, if you get some pieces in editorial, I mean, usually, I've lost a lot of the contacts I have with editorial as such, and it's like all these markets. Advertising is tricky to get into. You have to dedicate yourself to it, and I think with editorial as well. But when I see that, there's a different kind of. I mean, editorial is more of like, I hope people take it seriously. In terms of because you've got text as well, much more text, and it's a story. You hope people get the story, so it feels a bit more considered. When you see an ad, it's a bit like just wow, And especially back then, my kids were younger, so it's like they were like, I saw this and I felt really good about, obviously, thinking, I did that. You know what I mean? And they're going, my dad did that kind of thing. It really, particularly I've gone down to like my station, when you see 3 or 4 billboards, when they decided to do a blitz of a campaign, and there's about 2 or 3 and I go into go down to Richmond, and they're on that station, and the next Lake heading into town, you're like,
I think particularly for your style, because, you could be a photographer in advertising and just shot, something relatively small, or, not to knock your, like a bit of food or something, but like you said, by the nature of your work, it's nearly always full bleed. It's nearly always about the person and the reality of the situation. So by your nature, you are getting a lot of yourself in there, rather than a slightly less, a more clunky piece of work. That feels very... I'm looking at it now. It's just, it's all about photography. I mean, I'm not knocking the line or anything. It's beautiful.
No, I mean it's one of the few mediums now that will just put massive, big, bold pictures up.
Yeah.
I can think of like campaigns like, the photography one, maybe like the iPhone one or something like that, shot on iPhone.
Yeah,
all in
amazing.
And it was like, beautiful. That's pretty. And they took over underground stations and did everything, and it was like, well, that's a pretty bold thing to do,
We're going to talk about that tomorrow.
And that's all you need to do, though. Yeah. But it was a great campaign, wasn't it?
We talked about the KFC one earlier on. That one, again, is a photo-led, that very little copy, very little copy indeed, in fact, but it is kind of capturing that moment, which is, that's what the art of photography is all about, is that captured moment in time. If you don't mind, I'd love to move us on to another campaign, and sticking with sportswear, we're going to talk about Adidas.
It's the Adidas Jump Store from 2013. We have featured this actually on Instagram. I know we talked briefly about it, but I'm afraid to say you're going to have to do it all over again because not everyone who listens follows us, and if they don't, that's completely wrong. But if you could talk to us. Personally, this is like one of those. It's like one of those things you just look at and I'm immediately massively loving it, and then I'm very, very angry and jealous because I didn't do it. But then you kind of get over that, and it's just a wonderful piece of work.
And
I'm just wondering, could you just to establish it? So it's the Adidas D Rose Jump Store, and it was basically it was just at the beginning of these pop-up events, wasn't it? Where suddenly overnight, as if by magic, an advertising agency and some other people created this. What was it? Was it a shop or a bill?
It's basically, two creatives, the Tidball brothers, they're twins.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and they're nuts. Yeah, they behave. You look at they're pretty off the scale in terms of like, yeah, wow, whoa, So, they do 24-hour running, and they do unbelievable endurance sport. They're like bonkers stuff. So they have so much energy. You always have to tie them down. Just to sort of and they're like yourselves. They're like, well, just go and do what you do. We'd like you to come along and do what you do. We haven't got a brief as such. So they said, this is what we're doing. Is that we're setting up we're hiring out a place in kind of like Haggerston, Shoreditch, and we're going to convert it into a jump store. And what we're going to do, we're going to put...
Sorry, can I interrupt? What does that mean, a jump store?
Okay, well, a jump store, basically, they put a shelf, they built a shelf, the height of a basketball hoop, yeah, with shoes, these D Rose shoes, with signature shoes from Derek Rose, that he had just introduced, that they had just been introduced. And D Rose was turning up, so that was the big thing. D Rose is going to be there. Yeah. And if you come in, you have, I think it's 24 seconds is the time that you get in base basketball.
When you get the ball, that's right. Yeah,
24 seconds to run, jump up, and if you can get or knock off a shoe, you get a pair of shoes. Yeah. With D Rose there, yeah, and they probably give you a little signal and all that kind of thing. It's pretty, it was a great idea, a brilliant idea, And they had the camera, we had a film crew there, and they just said to me, "What we want is to see these people floating through. And that's what you want, floating through the air, yeah." So I just thought, well, to be honest with you, it's a bit like I was like, well, okay, that's fair. I thought that was fairly straightforward. The way I'm going to do that is get the old high-speed camera again and lie on the floor with a super wide lens, so they've got as much height as possible. Yeah, and this thing, shit like that, just machine gun. They go, yeah. Spray and pray. Yeah. It's going to be one in there. But you're not going to capture the one shot, but just getting different angles of them as they do it. So what they had some guys in who, not professionals, but semi-professional, like kids who were in like proper teams, who we did this with them, jumping up and down, because that's what they wanted from me, was to see people up in the air grabbing this stuff, and they did that for the camera crew as well. And then we did shots of people attempting it as well. But I think that was much more social media side, of like, someone's have tried this. But the shots actually floating through the air. And what's nice about the Tidballs is they just say, just do, it's like, and I'm like, what do you want me to do then? Just do your thing. And I'm like, I don't, it's funny. It's like the thing I hate now. And lots of photographers do treatments. And they say, can you describe your thing? Well, it's not. I can't describe my thing. I just it's something you.
So did they sort of say to you? Because I'm fascinated. So about this thing's going to happen, and I know like we always have time limits. It's not that thing's going to be built or they're going to be there for a day. Did they say, right, Adam, you got to rock up, You got to lie down on the floor, or do your thing, as they say. How long? So were you basically you're given 24 seconds to get one of these guys, but then you did shoot semi-professional people.
Yeah, I mean, these people are the semi-professional ones, so they did do this a few times. Because, to be honest with you, I mean, you can see it is pretty difficult to get up there.
It's impossible. Come on, impossible. It is actually impossible.
It is. Oh, it is. These guys are doing it for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what I've noticed with basketball players, and I've done a few. You know, is like when you film them, when you photograph them, it's incredible. They do almost like go up into the air, and they kind of hang, and then they come down, and you're like, okay, but they do.
They really do defy gravity, don't they?
It does. It feels like they literally go up, they float up, and they gracefully come down.
So did you?
I remember watching this slow-mo footage of Cristiano Ronaldo he was headering a goal, and he jumps so early for this cross that the defender just didn't have a chance. But he kept going up. He jumped so early, kept going up and going up and going up. He's headering it while the defender jumps as high as he can. He's a torso, shoulders, and a head above the defender, but he's jumped so early because he's just so athletic. And it's the same for these basketball players. They can the spring and the performance they get out of their legs to jump so high. It's just incredible.
Did any members of I'd be very intrigued, right? So, did any members of the public get close, do you think? Because I seen the film, which I think Walter Campbell shot, didn't he? Which is amazing.
He's great, yeah. And
I've seen there's some cute shots of kids on Rose's shoulders and stuff, but did anyone get one, do you reckon?
Oh, no, people got them, but they were, you can imagine, they play a lot of basketball and they're quite tall. Yeah, you know, of course, like, a little kid comes up, or some of the people that were like the younger kids who couldn't get up there. Of course, Derek Rose was just picking them up, that kind of thing. So, everyone would be happy. Yeah, I mean, it was.
Did you have it? Did you have a go, mate?
Yeah, I had a go. Nowhere near it, you know what I mean? Nowhere. Just try not to sort of twist my ankle. That's on the way down.
Oh, that's true.
I mean,
the thing for me was about this campaign was, I think it's a fantastic piece of out of home, outdoor, and that's how it fits into our series. It's not just a billboard; it's a form of a billboard. It's a piece of out of home, and that in itself is amazing. And the Titbull brothers deserve huge respect for it. But what I found fascinating was you managed to then take it to another level. Because when I saw these shots, I was going, "Fucking hell, those are good. Those are amazing." And I went, it's part of that thing. And I thought I hadn't put them together. And then when I started looking at them, I was going, "Yeah, that's a comp," or he's done something there.
No comping.
And then And then when I heard you talk, God, it seems like years ago. I think you called me in my back garden. About 6 months ago, we were talking about it, and then the Titbull brothers wrote it. It was all a bit mad. But when you said you laid on your back, and your ambition was to show them flying, that's an incredible skill. What you've done there. I know you say they have their own spring, but the way you've shot them, they are like magic. I think they're absolutely amazing images.
Oh, thank you. I mean, they are graceful. There's a real grace, and it's almost like ballet, dance to it.
Was there something else you said or they had said whereby were you pointing the camera? You said there was some trick where you point it at a point, so you create this whole. There was nothing in there, was there, apart from the shelf? But they'd art direct.
Yeah, it was all white. Yeah, I mean, there's an Adidas thing there that wasn't always in the right place. Yeah. That's probably the only thing that might have been dropped into a couple of shots is to make the Adidas sign. But I was finding out where they start and where they're going to finish and where they're going to end. Kind of, you know what I mean? Up, and you frame it, and because you want them to be. I just thought the idea is you want lots of space. Actually, you want a lot of space with a distinctive line and. This person floating across.
Yeah, what I thought was clever as well, because they if I was the client, I'd be going, wow, there's incredibly made this happening and people come down, it's all social and jazzy and all that. And then you're going, but then on the back of it, you get these shots. You would never make these shots just for a standard Adidas shoe campaign because you wouldn't have had that thought, no, because you wouldn't go, but then they sort of sit on their own as well as they're kind of like weird because they don't, when I saw them, I kept thinking there's something unbelievably beautiful about these and it's not explaining too much. They're like prints you put on a wall, they're not acting like it's not like an advert, which is what I was really attracted to it. I suppose you could have shot a bit wider and shown the back of a few heads and people going in and like, hey, here's a reportage shot. But these actually they feel like proper considered thing. I mean, did you think about shooting one beat behind, like showing a bit more of the kind of real world, or did you prefer to be sitting like in this cuboid? And
I prefer the latter. I just thought I want to have I want to get as much of that space and sense of space as possible, because I mean, in the whole story is about this strange environment that they're in, and the way they're climbing up in the walls, the way they're, I mean, they made some amazing. They made some great shapes, and you would, as a photographer, you sort of go like, next time you're up there, can you do that shape again? Yeah, I mean, another one's got the leg, but they got a leg behind him, and he's almost, I
mean, they're strangely sort of not Adam Hinton in a way because, if you look at your work, which I've looked at a lot lately, it's very real. It's people. It's sort of blurry bits in the front and that. And actually, these are a bit more. I find them kind of like not art, but they're certainly. Anyway, I'll start going on about them. They really are.
No, I mean the thing is though, it is a way of, you still have to know how to, because this thing's happening. You've got a certain amount of control over it, but it's also understanding you've got to let it flow. You've got to let the thing happen, and find interesting angles, things like that.
Yeah.
But it's like working with yourself and others. It's like figuring that out. Again, if there'd been too many people there putting their pennies worth in, you probably wouldn't have ended up with that, because they'd be like, they want this, they've got about 4 boxes to tick in this shop, and it's like, okay, well then it compromises it.
And I think that's actually that's actually a really good tip. We always end on tips, Adam, just so you know, podcast for the kind of for the creative industry. But I think it is a really good tip for all creative teams working with photographers, and we've heard it from a few people actually. Allowing the photographer to be the artist and to be in the moment is going to get you the better work and the better craft for the idea. And I think that's what you're talking about here, is that you've been allowed to express yourself through through someone else's concept. And I think that the photos are a testament to that for sure.
I mean, but also the work that usually always gets the most recognition is the one where I've been just said, like, we've got to get an idea across. Off you go and do it. I mean, I think that must be true for everything. It's like, and so it's a problem for the industry that there isn't enough of that anymore. It's like, copywriter does that. They come up with some great text, the art director with some visuals. You then get the right person to execute it, all that kind of stuff. It's a big team thing, but you've got to let people do what they do. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've got a little team with me, my stylist and stuff like that. I mean, she actually said, I don't tell her enough, and I just say, well, look, you know what I want, so and I know what you do, so just go and do it. Yeah, but she's brilliant. I mean, she's had so many compliments from creatives as well, because she just gets on with what she does. Yeah, she understands it. She needs to look at it. Yeah.
Can I ask one other question? And it's nothing to do with this. Just so you said the Tidball brothers run for 24 hours. What does that mean? You literally run for 24 hours.
I would say there's people out there that run for 36, for 48 hours. Endurance run. I know. I said 5. Well, I've done one marathon in my life, and I would never do it again. Yeah, quick, done. But I said, how can you physically run for that length of time? They do.
Come on, Dan, you're going to say something rude to me now. Yeah,
you know how you run for the bus every now and again. Well, imagine running for the bus, but the bus is leaving from Manchester. That's what it's like running for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. I think just going up and down the stairs, as John Jones gets me to take breath. Adam, we are. That was wonderful. Thank you. Nike and Adidas, beautifully summed up. So, what we're going to talk about now is This Girl Can, and we're kind of doing it in this order as well because it sort of suits us. It's the timeline, but. Dan and I were saying the other day that, like, you've done this Nike thing. You're dealing with these mega, they're Olympic athletes. They're gold medal winners, and then you've done Adidas. You got some of these incredible basketball players who've just been talking about their athleticism, and then you get the next gig in our timeline is This Girl Can, which is basically just all the real women of England. Which is fascinating in a way because it's sort of, your job, like all of our jobs, you go for one job and it's sort of amazing how then the next job is either completely different or somehow related. But I suppose it must have been, what's clever about this idea in a way, which FCB and Furno did, was that they wanted to use that language that you have created in those sort of classic sports shots, but then apply it to just everyday people. Did you go in with that? That's your mindset, right? I'm going to treat this person like Mo Farah, or
it sounds odd. Maybe the way I treat people, maybe I don't know. And I know everyone likes to say it, but I just treat everyone the same anyway, I suppose.
Yes.
So, obviously, you're a little bit more nervous talking to someone like Pogba or Messi or someone who is known to be a bit moody with photographers. But generally, it isn't much different. And actually, when you get down to talking to a lot of these people, they're no different anyway in some respects. You know what I mean? There isn't. And then when you talk to people, you're explaining the same sort of thing, really.
So can we just do a recap on this campaign? Let's just explain. Obviously, we've said it before. We're podcasting and audio, and we're talking about something that's very visual. Would you mind just explaining the This Girl Can campaign and maybe a bit about the brief to you and how you achieved the look?
I mean, the brief was, again, it was one of these wonderful jobs where I came in, didn't have to write a treatment. They decided that's what we'd like you to do the job. And it was obviously it was going to be a massive campaign, and they said, like, we're going to involve, this is more than just an ordinary campaign because, we're going to have government ministers speaking on Radio 4, local radio. It's a very integrated campaign, and it's to encourage, encourage women of all shapes and sizes and ages to go out and just start doing some exercise. Doesn't matter what you look like, doesn't matter what just go out, and we've got to try and get people exercising more. So it's a really important campaign. As I say, like when I say like I work with certain people, I have got a team. I've got my producers who we know each other inside out. They are on board because they gave us quite a clear idea. They'd already found some sources, and what they wanted from us is to also find that we got from TV. And they wanted us to find other people for part of the print campaign. And the brief was that we need people who are prepared to go onto radio to talk about their story, able to write about it, maybe have a local newspapers interview you. So we had to find people that look good or look right, not look good, but that look like they would fit the demographic that we were trying to do overall. Look like a normal person, and have an interesting story or just a story about how they got into their exercise and how they, and also the benefits.
And willing to share it, right?
I am willing to share it, I mean, as I say, like that's why it was such a wonderful campaign, because not only you had literally, like, I remember the day it was released, I heard it on is it AM, whatever it is, on Radio 4. There was the government minister launching a big campaign. Then it was on Women's Hour, and it's like, wow, this is a problem, And then they had photographs of local women, some of them that I'd photographed, on stage talking to in a local community hall, So that was the lovely thing about it. It was a really big, thoroughly thought through campaign from one end to the other. And
so how did your producers cast it then? Are they kind of, I assume they're as much researchers as they are producers. They're out there street casting and using casting agents to do that?
Well, for this one, because we needed people with stories as well, so it's difficult to street cast. Like, hi, are you a cyclist? Are you a walker? Are you a swimmer? So we actually we approached clubs, local clubs, local cycling, swimming clubs, Zumba clubs, and just, have you got? Are you interested? Most of them are like, oh wow, yeah, of course we. This is a great campaign, and we then they then introduced us to people. We asked them to. The nice thing about a lot of the time now, you can get people to take a picture of themselves.
Yeah,
take a picture of yourself, maybe a quick video. Tell us what you're about, what you're about. And they did a lot of that sorting out. They whittled it all down for us, and then I went through it, and then we would show that to the agency. So there was a long run.
Did you? I think you might have answered this. Sorry. Did you shoot the women just like Adam Hinton on his own, snapping away? Did you have an agency there, a client, all of that kind of regular stuff, or did you say, look, for kind of to make it really natural, I need to do this on my own? What was the? No,
we did. We had to have. We did have. Like, I mean, the Zumba shot we've got here. Yeah.
Do you want to describe it, Adam?
Well, that was because they use this on TV as well. So it was a club in Manchester, in Hugh, in Manchester.
Nice.
A bit nice class, very mixed. Yeah. And I mean, from my own experience, it's like, okay, so I know I know the kind of, they work under disco lights with loud music. So I had to introduce some additional lighting just to get the level up, but lit in exactly the same way. Yeah. I mean, that's okay. That's one of the things that, but if I've got a skill, I can duplicate places to make it look like this. They're not unnaturally lit,
right?
Or lit in exactly the right way. And then basically, I mean, these people then, I mean, they then did. The woman who was leading it was amazing. This is quite inspirational, and she basically led this class for 4 hours of hard, intense Zumba. Yeah, I mean, basically, we sort of, what you do is we watch them dancing, we set them up, and then you start moving people around a little bit just because you know that you've got your favourites. They look really good. They'll work really well. Yeah.
And they're all aware that you were shooting. Yeah, they're all aware that you were going to do.
Oh
this.
Yeah, no, they were there for the shoot. I mean, it was a case of they were there because I had to put the lights in. I mean, they'd had the TV there before, so they were there for the shoot. And again, you move it around though because you want to make sure that everyone feels involved. Yeah, so it's not just about getting your shot. It's also about making sure. I did it recently with a lottery campaign for the 25th anniversary. That you're with a group of people. You've got to make sure that everyone feels they've contributed. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they get an idea of who's obviously so and so. She was the favourite, or they were the favourite. Yeah. But they all get a go, so you've got to be aware.
There's two versions of this, aren't there? There's we're looking currently at a 6 sheet, but there's a 48 as well, which has a slightly
yeah.
They're both, weirdly. I mean, I'm a much bigger fan of 48s just because they're big. I really like the 6. I like the 6. I mean, it's such a brilliant campaign. It's such a great line. Like this girl can. It's just one of the greatest lines. It's just right up there.
Again, and a nice bold picture with a good headline over it.
And you feel like it. I mean, it clearly is another brilliant example of letting you get on and do your thing.
Yeah, well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm aware of where bylines are going to go. I mean, when you're framing, and that's what you've got to think about. I've got to allow space for this, space for that. But you do it while you're shooting. Yeah.
Did you get involved? Sorry, because my research has not as been good as normal. But did you get involved in any filming? Or did you get involved in the following year, or did you just do the first launch and that was it?
I just did the first launch. I mean, it's funny. I've been involved in, because the director was a woman. There was a lot of female,
wasn't it?
Yeah, very very feminine, woman-focused production. So, and I've been on some odd shoots where it's quite sensitive work to do with women. And I'm like, do you sure you want a bloke to do this? But I seem to get those jobs. I think the next year it went to a very good photographer, but it went to a female photographer. And I could actually see, I think there was a lot more art direction involved in that one, because there was a theme running through it. I mean, again, I think like this, the one we're looking at now, open water in October, November. I mean, it was bloody cold,
Yeah, and you're in the water as well.
I mean, I'm in the water, but with a nice thick wetsuit on. It's still cold. You know what I mean? This obviously got used to it.
You wouldn't catch me in that water, boys, for the reasons previously. We'll just leave that, shall we? That was a great campaign. Yeah. So look, I thank you, Adam, so much. We're going to talk about two more campaigns before we stop, and we're going to change the tone and the mood a little bit here, because the next campaign is called "Cancer is Happening Now," and this is a far more sobering piece of work, but no less impactful than your previous work. Again, sorry to bang on, but the reason why you're on here is because me and Dan just love so much of your work, and this is no exception. The big thought from Anomaly is amazing. The way they changed the rules really by just going, cancer is happening right now, and just showed what's happening to people on cancer wards and the stuff they're going through the night. I think it was one of the longest ads, or the longest ad ever. They just shot someone through the night. It was just stuff I looked at and I thought, that is someone who's pushed the boundaries. They've broken out of a category, and it was phenomenal work. I used it many times. I have to say, and this is homage, apologies to all the other people at Anomaly, but when we were doing NHS, I kept banging about this campaign, going, we must be real, we must be with people. No saccharine, no studios, etc. But the part you played was bringing to life the work on out of home, digital out of home. Is that correct?
Yeah. But I mean, they had this was in Leeds. They've got back then. They had a huge centre for cancer care. I mean, it was a massive place, and they'd already had a film crew there for I think about a week, 4 or 5 days, and then they said, we'd like you to go up and spend, it was 4 days in the end, 4 days there, just in different wards and photographing what you can, in a way, as it happens.
Sorry to interrupt you, Adam, but do you find it, obviously we've looked at some incredible stuff with some athletes and some obviously some stuff in Shoreditch with some young guys jumping around, and then we're into kind of real people working out. This is obviously such a big shift, and it's a new project for you. Do you find it hard to jump into something that's so emotive like this? These are real people going through something that is actually catastrophic for their families, and you're in there for those 4 days. Do you feel kind of the energy change for you? Is it more sapping? Is it more do you find it harder?
Yeah. It's you go into places like that. I mean, especially. Yeah, you're talking to people whose life is potentially coming to an end fairly within a short time span, if not them, then people that they love quite dearly. Yeah, I mean, it's a different, of course, it's a very different vibe. I approached it quite differently. I approached it more. I shot on my little Leicas, which is they're very quiet and then unassuming, and you don't go bowling around. You know what I mean? But the one thing is when you talk to people as well, and you explain, like say this situation with this poor kid, and you talk to their parents. And then once you've explained, it's a bit like when we did the NHS. If you're working for a health charity or public service, people are very, very happy, or almost they want you. They say absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Unless it's obviously they're in a lot of pain. I mean, emotionally, they might be quite in quite a difficult situation. And then you have to be very careful. You just like, and take you obviously here you'd ask the doctor. You tell me what's the person to ask, because they say there's some people we can't go there.
Yeah.
Did you actually get to know?
Think about it.
Did you get to know them? You talked briefly about this girl how you got a bit more behind the characters, and you could sort of meet them. On the cancer research work, were you assigned certain patients who had said, "Yeah, I'm up for this," and did you sort of talk to them privately, or was it not as well worked out? Were you given time to get to know them, or is it actually a much quicker? Do you mind if I just take one or two photos?
It's a much quicker process. I mean, we were there, and so they have to assign some days. I mean, on a production side, these are the days we're working. These are the days the hospital said you can come in. And I suppose the way they work, things change all the time. So there's no like predetermined, we're definitely seeing so-and-so at this time, or and there isn't the resources for us to go, okay, can we go and talk to that person beforehand? It literally was, you have to ask them there and then, and I mean, and some people, like I went back, there was one kid I went back to, I mean, God knows what's happened to him. He obviously had a major brain tumor when he was younger. And I photographed him over probably 3 days, and it was, and his mum was there all the time. It was a younger lad than this. We got some amazing shots from it. They didn't use that. I don't know what happened, but this guy here was, he was having chemo, and then it all started, and he was, take your pictures, yeah. And chatting to people, I mean, you're having a laugh with them as well. They're not always, they all want to be cheered up as well. So you kind of like, I make a bit of a joke, let's have a chat about this. Did you see that? So you settle in like you're almost a visitor, and they come, he was quite, you do in a way. I mean, people have said, on my personal work, they say that it's often, we just forget you're a photographer. We don't act, you're just you're a guest. That's what it feels like, which is nice. So you try and make yourself feel like you're a guest. You just got to learn how to move yourself around. But that guy, his chemo started to go a bit wrong, and he's ended up throwing up all over the place, being quite sick. But he was just saying, "Carry on. I want people to see this. So just carry on taking pictures."
Wow.
And then had to call his mum in, because that's his mum who had to come in because he was so ill, and he stayed the night.
Do you feel like having, I said right at the top of the episode about, all the places you've been and stuff before you became an advertising photographer or similar time, I imagine that must stand you in good stead for moments like this.
Yeah, I mean, what I like is people, and it's nice to be with people, talk, chat, sit with them, and I take pictures as well in a way. That's great. I mean, you couldn't have had your career around really. You would not have shot this without having been,
where you started. Because I think if your career had gone the other way, you'd just been ad photographer, you know what I mean? You wouldn't have this huge knowledge of how to be with people, and to, like, you just said something there earlier. It was just so amazing, like, sort of thing I would never have thought of. You said you brought a camera that was quieter. It's just such a clever idea. Obviously, with a smaller, just a smaller size of it. So
yeah, I mean, hold on. It's where is it? Let me get it. It's one that is. I mean, photographers love them. It's just a little. It's quite small, as you can see. So, and it's very a little Leica, and so they look like antiques, and so people kind of think. They probably think he's not that good, is he?
But you're right, though. You've put them at ease. But some of these shots that we're looking at, if you have your massive lens and the super, the Mark V camera or whatever, you're going to have this whole system. It feels obtrusive in the situation. They're going to change their behavior, and they won't be real. And what you're after is a real shot and real people, and you've managed to achieve that with the tools that you've got. That's
I
mean, some of you've got to be sensitive, because as well, like this shot, and I don't think with the young boy that just fell into place. But sometimes I had to recompose the shot, so I had to ask people, can you just move this way and that way? Which almost feels
the family talking to the mum who's sitting in the chair. Yeah,
I mean, you really feel like, oh God. I mean, I have to ask. And you have apology. You say, look, I'm sorry. I have to ask. Do you mind just moving around to just to help me framing up and stuff? And people are very, as long as you're nice about it, and people are very, they're so enthusiastic to do anything to help. I mean, these are people who know they're probably not going to be there in a year's time. So
it's another thing I like about this, just the broader aspect of the campaign, where the positivity is I'm not going to cry now, but I nearly always cry when I see it. It's like an ad. It's a year on. It's a little lad, and he's running around at school, and it's an amazing thought to think that he's now all right. And obviously there's
I know the one.
It's an upset as well. Some people don't make it, but I think that's what's clever about the campaign, because it says it's happening, people are dealing with it, people are recovering, some people don't. But then, and I think that was so clever about the campaign. It never done it. It just took everything, took all the advertising and all that airing and all that shit, and just go totally amazing. And I think ever since then, the gloves have been off a bit more, which very neatly, well done, Dan, clicking onto just looking at a very big NHS logo. I'm not going to talk about it too long, because it's something I've worked on, and I don't really believe in promoting my own stuff. But we'll just touch upon this briefly. This
is where our listeners start to hear the humble side of my co-host. He's doing himself he's doing himself and Louisa a disservice here, because this concept and this campaign is absolutely fantastic, and it has been awarded. And I mean, it's an amazing piece of work, and you should do, because this is great work, and you will always do it down, and you shouldn't, because it is fantastic.
I'm not doing it down. I don't want to go and get my bugle out and start
this year specifically, the NHS has had a lot of press, and we are, for this country, we are forever indebted to some of the people who work in the NHS, and this campaign, I think, sought to hero the people who keep our national health system running. I mean, over to you, Hugh, because this is your baby and you should talk about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Dan, that's very sweet, because you do seem to have quite a nice side at times. It's not just meanness and spurs. He's an old twat. No, I love you really, mate. I think this for me, Adam, I think we worked briefly together once on a job at Shell, but not for long, JWT on Shell, and I think I missed you. And I always felt a bit like I hadn't really had my moment in the sun with you. So when this came along, when me and Lou were doing it. I just thought, that's it. That's the guy. And then when he came in, bedecked in your shorts, it's very different. So I really loved it. And I think the most scary thing for me and Louisa was, you have to remember, we'd won this account, and then I think within 6 weeks we had to have it up and running TV, and I kept thinking, it'll be all right. That just push it over to someone else. And then,
it was a bit like that, wasn't it?
And you came in. Yeah, and I think if you could just explain to people what happened, because what I recall, it's a couple of years back now, but we had this line and we had all these amazing images we sourced off the internet and from researchers, and we went, yeah, Adam, can you do something like that? And he said, okay. And then hospital after hospital wouldn't either let us in or be busy and stuff. So I think, just waved goodbye to you for 2 weeks, and I sort of crossed myself in the office with Lou and said, it's all right, it's Adam Hinton, it's going to be fine. And then every few days we go, yeah. So tell me, just tell us a little bit about...
Okay, I'm going to give some credit to I mean, it's down to Locate, they're my producers. They are...
Yes.
And Amanda, who I work with, and Rosie, and all of them. I mean, obviously the whole lot they were all 110% behind the campaign. Like, this is an amazing celebration and a thank you, to the people who work there. And there's a recruitment crisis, going on. Yeah. So we got to get this sorted out. So they worked incredibly hard to, because I can remember them saying, what was it? It was something like, we were thinking like, okay, so the Department of Health can give us some contacts. No.
Yeah.
Like, someone in government, the people who work with these hospitals must be able to have a contact for us. No. We had to cold call them and say, like, can you help? We're doing this. I mean, we're very lucky.
Wasn't it the one that Lou found, Adam? Do you remember the one in?
It was. Where was that? Because what we found was Larissa got us in contact with someone with the Kent.
Abby. A woman called Abby.
Abby, yes, Abby in Kent. Who? I mean, it's like a lot of a lot of these. I mean, I just did the stuff when I did it in Leeds recently. I mean, there was a guy there was wonderful as well. Once you meet the right person who understands exactly what you want, gets it, but they also understand what isn't going to work as well. Yeah, which is really important, because they can say, I've and lots of times I've been said, this is great, this looks wonderful, and you get there and you go, no, this is not going to work at all. Yeah.
We're in a really rubbish, unphotographically interesting manner.
Yeah. The way for you it looks great. For Joe Public, and it's going to just looks like paint drying. Yeah. It doesn't work. But Abby got it immediately, and she worked really hard. Amanda worked really hard. All to get us there. And of course, it's like once you get to the front line, I suppose you've all experienced this, isn't it? A lot of the time, it's get to the people on the front line and everything's sweet. Yeah. Yeah. It's getting through battling through the ever increasing lines of the bureaucracy to get to these things is actually what a lot of the work is. And that's where Lakay came in, and Amanda and Rosie just banging and banging and banging at the doors to get us in. And then once we got in, Abby, she totally understood it. And we went from you gave us the brief. We had maternity, we had district nurses, we had a whole different areas to cover. And it was kind of, we had to split it up. We spent a bit of time here, a bit of time there, like a half a day in a children's ward. And you just got to make sure that you hope it's going to be busy and something happens.
I remember us saying, because Lou and I would be back in the office, writing on something else. And every now and again, we'd sort of look at each other and go, I wonder what Adam's doing now. And then she'd say, we'd get some feedback going, he's doing heart attacks. He's on heart attacks now. No, he's can't do heart attacks. He's doing babies, and it was like, oh my God. And I just had this picture of you sort of with your little backpack, a power thing, and just running in and out of water. But the stuff that came back, it needed to feel a bit on the hoof, because we didn't want it staged, we didn't want it all set up. He wanted it a bit. So in a way, I know it was probably quite stressful, but it did play. When we set out to win that pitch, we all talked about cancer is happening actually, and for us and A&E, and going, if you've got shows and other campaigns on TV like that, you have to be as good or better than them. So we have to be real as real. So we want blood, water, everything. And so that's why, again, we loved having you on the team. I mean, go on, Ad, sorry, mate.
I mean, this guy here was having a suspected heart attack, yeah?
It's one of my favourite images this year.
I mean, what's interesting is, though, some of this, I say this with sports people sometimes, is like, because they, bloody art directors, and creatives, they come along and they're going like, oh, I want to see the passion, the expression, the feeling, and all this kind of thing. And a lot of time, especially with nurses, if you look at the nurse's expression here, that's what they look like.
It's calm. It's calm.
Well, it's not. It's calm, but actually, there's a fuck of a lot going on in their heads. But absolutely, you're like, it's like, okay, there's a procedure here. Do it. Yeah. You know, I've got to do this. Right. I've got to do that. I have to pick this up. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to check your arm here, and your face is like, that's it.
Yeah. When we met them, we met them and interviewed them, and they kept. You'd say, like, we talked about 7/7 bombings and stuff like that. It's just really, really tough stuff. Like one commercial we wanted to make was called My First Day at Work. And it was a woman whose first day was on the 7/7 bombings, and she was at home and she'd done her shift, and then she saw on the TV, and then she just walked to work. She didn't even think about being called in. And I'm getting a little tingle just thinking about how amazing they were. But then what they would say is, heart attack or a motorbike accident or something, and they said the training kicks in, and it would be like in the Matrix, just gets plugged in and off they go, not in a kind of mean cold-hearted way, but super professional. Save this person's life, put the tube in here, etc. And it was it was pretty amazing and just eternally humbling watching those things happen. I mean, funny enough, the love these people have. I mean, like my mum's in a care home, and boy, is it difficult for me. She's I don't on the phone. I was talking to her last night, yesterday, and she's lost her teeth. She's lost 2 front teeth. She's convinced someone came in during the night and pulled her teeth out. Now. You're dealing with these people here. They're dealing with people like that, and I was photographing some people who were absolutely wonderful, and then and I thought, I'm getting some lovely shots of this woman interacting. She's fine to give permission because she's very cognitive, and then all of a sudden she's going on about she wants a mummy, right. And like obviously like all those shots. That's it. No, can't do that. Damn. So, but the people caring for them. I mean, the love that was in this ward. I mean, for people that can be very difficult. It's not their fault, obviously, but it was incredible. I was really, really humbling. Because with the young kids, but when you're dealing with older people, and some of them can be quite grouchy. They were just amazing. They really were. It was so uplifting, It's funny, of all the shots you did, though, because there were many and amazing, and Lou and I would pour over them. Weirdly, the one we liked the most wasn't actually in a hospital. It was at someone's house. It was the woman having the eye drops administered. She was a centurion. Is that correct?
Yes, she's 100 years old. You wouldn't have known she was a day over 80 or something. She was full of life. And you can see
this is one of my favourites.
Yeah, I mean, she had got dressed up to the nines. She was like,
oh, seriously,
out of gear because the family were there. They were all there actually. That's what they knew they were coming. And she got completely dressed up in this. So I kind of had to disguise that a little bit. You know what I mean? So to make it look a bit. But the thing is, her clothes fitted in with this colourful environment she had.
I can just quickly describe it. So it's it's a 48 sheet of a woman leaning back in a chair and a nurse is administering some eye drops, which is one of the really important things. But like you said, the art direction, because I was looking at the art direction of it, and Lou go, this is just magic. It's just, and part of me, I thought you had got her to wear that. I didn't realise sort of that was her Sunday best, and there was a whole family in the back.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant.
I mean, there was another guy, a previous guy, we went to his flat as well, which was, again, great, I mean, it is great to work with these people. That's the thing. I mean, often you go on shoots, and sometimes, as I say, you just don't. Sometimes you think that it's just the privilege of being there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
it's quite amazing.
Yeah. No, it was a brilliant. I mean, I obviously knew you before, but there was a great way to get to know you, and I think we did quite a bit more after that. But obviously, I'm not there anymore, and so it's really nice to kind of relive it a bit and chat about it here today.
Well, it's funny because the last one I did just before lockdown, I shouldn't say this, but I think it was a different department, and we actually had the clients on the job. It just made it much more difficult. Yeah, it's
because I wasn't there, Adam. I mean, let's just say it.
You weren't there. That's why, because you weren't in the booth. No, but you let me go off and do it. I was like, off you go. Yeah, and off I went.
We'll do something again, and I'll just let you go off.
So, Adam, are you saying that Hugh's laziness to not go on the shoot has made the whole thing better?
Well, I mean, I could always hear football in the background whenever I spoke to him. Like, I don't know what it was, or football, or the chinking of glasses. Yeah, I'm busy. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me go somewhere quiet. Are you not in the bar?
You won't hear anything here now because it's us. And even before lockdown, it was silent anyway. So
weirdly, the Arsenal stadium is noisier now with the fake crowd noise than it was when fans inside.
Dan's a Spurs fan, everyone. So
Yeah.
Anyway, we started on football and we finished on football. So there's a good one. We've got a couple of little ending questions, if that's all right. Do you get involved in any of those kind of any Billboard concepts that didn't happen that you still look back and go, oh yeah, that would have been a fantastic billboard. That would have been a fantastic piece of out of home.
Well,
ones that got pulled.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's. I mean, in terms of like pitching for not pitching so much as like we got this job, we want you to do it. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. I'll have to get my head around it. Which ones?
Well, we can post your comment on the in the description afterwards. If you have a think about it,
let me think about it. It's a bit slow. Yeah, you know what? I've got lockdown brain. Definitely lockdown brain. It's terrible.
Well, weirdly, I think there are going to be loads of billboards that didn't happen from this year from lots of people's books. So I think there'll be. I think next year when we ask that question, there's going to be a raft of them that didn't happen, unfortunately. But,
well, I just hope there's a load of demand. I mean, I'm sure lots of people. I mean, I was just talking to a pilot earlier today who's in my road, he's sat at home. They're all hoping next summer, everyone's going to be just, if we are allowed out, everyone's just going to be going out, doing everything.
I'm very confident.
And then a favourite billboard of all time. What's your favourite billboard of all time?
A favourite billboard of all time? I would have to say, I mean, I think that the Nike stuff I like. That was a campaign that I loved working on. I mean, and I would say that, and I mean, there's three of them. It would be Nike, This Girl Can. I'm terrible at picking one, and NHS. But they're the three Billboard campaigns I would go through my time.
I think the best thing is that we've covered all of those in this episode. So I'm glad that we've been able to tell the story and get behind the billboard with all of our listeners.
Well, it's like the NHS. That's a billboard that's got a whole 70 years history of the NHS behind it. It's a big story. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, mate, you've been a big presence today. Thanks so much. It's ace hearing. This podcast is all about, creativity, not just from the creative people writing them, but, from the photographers. We're trying to go into different areas and that. So thanks so much for bringing bringing it to life and telling us more about how you got into it. And absolutely fascinating stuff. I really, really appreciate you coming on.
Well,
thanks very much.
Thank you very much for asking me. Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
All right.
So it's good to talk. Yes, so that's good. All right.
Yeah, I actually didn't ever realise how poor my signal was till John got me onto, was it SpeedNet or something? Anyway, people aren't interested in that. That was a wonderful chat with Adam.
It was great.
Very, very smart man, but very generous, in his honesty. And some of the stories he was telling about his mum and his upbringing are kind of, really got me a bit, actually. Really, really enjoyed it.
That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant stuff. And for one recorded in lockdown, I think it's gone pretty smoothly.
Yeah, I think it bodes well, but it's not the same as sitting next to you, mate.
I miss you too.
Right. Anyway, I'll leave you to do some social stuff. Bye.